The Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast is proudly sponsored by New Vision.
My team, kinda power. I love the power. I love the power.
Hi everyone, I am Macca19 and this is the Big Footy Port Adelaide podcast, a show about all things Port Adelaide Footy Club. Joining me as always as co-host, we got Fishing Rick.
Macca, mate, how are you, buddy?
Good, buddy, and yourself?
Oh, very excited to be here once again, and it's going to be a cracker of a show.
I hope so. Look, it's the 20-year anniversary of the 1995 Premiership this year, so we thought we'd do a bit of a review podcast on that season. So we've got a number of special guests on tonight to help us through that. The first is moderator extraordinaire Ford Fairlane.
We are not here to be bloody patronised. It's my biggest recollection of the 1995 Grand Final. It was Alan Stewart's dummy disappearing into West Lakes.
It was a great dummy spit. I loved it. And our second guest is a man that held that mighty cup aloft on the dais that day. He's a friend of the podcast here. Welcome back, Timmy Geneva.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. A pleasure to be involved once again, and especially now that Fishing Rick has got his dulcet tones going through the John Law's gold microphone. I've seen it. I have actually seen it.
Be careful, they'll start asking you what you earn.
That microphone is bigger than my car. It's ridiculous.
And it's gold.
He melted down.
It is gold.
He just values the value of gold.
The amount of people that come in to see me and they look at that thing on my desk and go, what the hell's going on here?
What have we walked into?
Well, look, before we get into the 95 season, we'll have a quick chat about the leadership announcement today. Obviously, Matty Loby's been promoted to vice-captain and Ollie Wines has been added to the leadership group. Both pretty straightforward announcements, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think it's good news. Really pleased to see Loby in there.
Yeah, don't have any argument, is there, really? I mean, Loby's last 2 years have been absolutely outstanding, carrying the pig on his back, basically, hasn't he? And
Absolutely.
He's been rewarded for it.
And that's it.
Isn't there a rule that if you join the leadership group, you have to automatically sign on to the club for another 5 years?
I hope so.
That'd be great.
I think that should be made policy.
Yeah.
And great to see Ollie Wines join the group, and the advertiser quick to come up with the headline, Fine Wines Matures. I guess we had to expect that.
Yeah, the wine puns are always going to come. But look, what an outstanding reward for a young man in what will be just his third season of football. Still only just turned 20 years of age in October. Wow, what a rise! But he's just going to get so much better because he is the type of lad that just does not enter into any of that. You know, I am so great. He's just about trying to improve every time he hits the track, so that's why he's made it. I would assume.
Tim, I got
He's lost a little bit of weight and looks a lot fitter so far this pre-season.
No, he's still a big boy. Like he's a
Very,
unit.
very strong. Just to put you on the spot, Tim, does he remind you of any past Port Adelaide players that you've seen?
The way he plays or his build?
I think, well, a bit of both. I think the build, I guess you'd have to say Russell Lee, but like...
Yeah, because Russell was very powerful through the core and those massive, powerful thighs and drivers. So yeah, you're right. Yeah. He's probably got that sort of build, but he reminds me of that young Greg Phillips type from the country. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just going to do it, and
get out of my way.
Yeah, and can take bodies with him at such a young age.
Tim, I've got a quick question for you though, as a former leader of the club. I mean, if you compare the leadership group now to what it was when you were playing, A, how much different is it? But B, how much influence are those boys exerting as a leader in that leadership role? Is it just more a figurehead sort of position, or is there actually some work to it?
They work very hard on it, and they certainly meet as a group and all the rest of it. Ours was completely organic, and there was no structure around it whatsoever, other than you're number one and you're vice captain, and that's what it was. It was, and in the year we're talking about, 95, I was captain, Delaney vice captain, and then the other blokes just they just take on leadership.
They really were natural leaders, though, weren't they? By 95, the guys there, played 4 or 5 premierships. You had like your Northeast and your Carter, and like you said, your Delaney, Fiarchi. Just some really terrific leaders, and even Greg Anderson coming back into the side during the year. That you must have felt really well supported as a captain at that time.
Yeah, it wasn't difficult. I mean, Darren Smith, Stephen Williams. I mean, these guys, Hodges. That's 3 guys in your forward line. Then you had Rowan Smith in his own way was a leader and a terrific teammate. But that back line with Northeast, Delaney, Brian Lees came over, thought he was captain of the club. Never one for a dull moment, Brian. But it was really good. And then somebody like Fabian Francis in that team. Flash was always really, really good with his voice. I mean, he was a reasonably young man of about, I'm guessing, about 21, 22 in that team. He was incredibly positive with his voice.
There was a moment, probably just jumping ahead here, but in the grand final where Clive Waterhouse took a big mark in front of goal, I think in the third quarter, and Clive was pretty revved up by then, and Fabian just ran over to him and just grabbed him and held him and just settle, go back, take your kick, calm down. And it was a really a leadership kind of action that stood out at that point. Correct,
and that's why I said it, and why he was so important as such a young player to just, and that was the environment in which was bred. And I think the guys now at AFL level, like I said, it is structured, but what they do is they basically try to help one another daily, and they are 7 out of 8 days on the track and doing something, and they've got to keep themselves and the group always striving to be the best, and they've come along in leaps and bounds.
And it's great because it's like a very young and inexperienced leadership group. Look at the age of the players and the amount of games they've played, and it's still only probably a handful of finals, as exciting as it's been the last couple of years, compared to when you were there, Tim, and as we said, the guys there with multiple premierships to their names and a heap of experience. And so it's great to see the young kids really taking it up and wanting to push the club forward, and I think Lobie's loyalty's been rewarded as well. That he could easily have gone a couple of years ago as well, and he's stuck around, and a few of the others that have. And there's a real solidarity that's like that early Portside back when it was sort of the late 80s when Jack came back, and it really started to build from there.
Yeah, Ron, I think they know that they've got an opportunity that's in front of them, and I don't think there was any surprises today, which I think was the really good thing. And that means you're building stability. And it's one of the pillars in success is stability. And those guys are now well cemented in the group. And I'm not against Rick's statement of perhaps it's a 5-year deal if you get in that leadership group. Yep. You just have to hang around. I think that is a real key factor.
We got the power to win, power to roll.
Look, we won the flag in 94, that stunning grand final victory. We won the second AFL licence a month later. What was the expectation going into the 95 season? Was there more pressure to perform now that we were actually playing the waiting game to go into the AFL?
Oh, well, that's pretty much it, Macca. I only told the story yesterday at the footy club. We had a bit of a day about, handling the expectation, how we're all going to lift. This is, every department in the whole football club. And I said, this is nothing new. I said, these expectations have been around on this football club, since it was created, and got bigger and bigger as we got more and more successful through the years. And I just reflected on a story that we were upstairs at the Port Club, and I said, just over there by that window, I said I was waiting to be presented to the crowd after we got back from the dinner at Football Park, and you go out, I said, to 15,000, 20,000 people screaming and yelling and loving the grand final night at Alberton, and I was trapped in the corner with Bruce Webber, and Bruce Webber's telling me, now Timmy, we've got to get back on the horse, we've got to win again. This is 92 he's talking about, and we've just won. And he said, now we've got to get back on those. We've got to keep winning premierships, otherwise we're not going to get that second licence. And I turned in and I said, Bruce, you're exactly right. But can I enjoy tonight? I just have this little moment. He said, all right, you can have tonight, but tomorrow we're back on the horse. And we had a good laugh about it, but I loved it. It was the expectation of, hey, this one's over. You got to get back on the horse and win the next one. So that whole 90s was set about just continually win to put our name in lights. And, of course, winning 94, which, we spoke about was how amazing it was and all the rest of it. But come 95, we added Robbie West to the team, who was outstanding. We had Brian Lees come in at centre half back because Darryl Wakelin went to St Kilda. He was outstanding. Anthony Darcy, who took a while to get going and had a few injuries, his back half of the year and last 6 games were amazing, to the point where he got redrafted. Spiro Malakalis came in to join his brother Tony. So they were incredibly good ins and guys that they probably thought, well, they're going to really bolster what is a good core already.
It's probably worth noting that from that 94 team, there were 10 changes come the grand final. And the Eagles went through a similar change period. They had 10 changes. They finished second to bottom. Port Adelaide won a premiership.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing. Despite the turnover, the incredible result. And I remember as a supporter, I went to all of the trial games. And the confidence that came out of I think, winning that 94 grand final, despite all the turnover, but as Tim said, the terrific players that were added, and getting that licence. I mean, we were just smashing sides in those trial games to the point where we'd be 40, 50 points up at half time and Jack would take half the side off and go, okay, you guys have done enough. And I think there was one where Tim would probably remember this against Glenelg at Glenelg, and we were 40, 50 points up at half time. Jack took half the side off. Glenelg came back and left all their best players on. They won the game, and they virtually ran a lap of honour. They were so happy. And it was a trial game.
Classic Glenelg.
You know what I said at the end of that game? Because I was one of the guys that had come off and sitting on the bench. I looked around at the bench, and they're all looking at me, the guys, and I said, they're going to put a marquee up tonight and celebrate.
It was. You had to be there. It was really funny. I mean, we sat there and we'd lost, and you were laughing because they were acting as if they'd won the premiership.
It was unfortunately where they had fallen to, and the teams we would have played in the past, especially in those grand final teams, that those Bay Blokes would have just walked off and just realised it was another trial. But it was just where they were at, unfortunately, and it didn't get much better for many years.
No. It was incredible. And I think, too, in those trial games, you really saw a bit of a change in the way Port were playing, that really quick reflex give out of packs to open games up and release runners on the outside. I think it was just a little tweak of the game plan. Tim may disagree with me, and then I'll sound like a complete idiot, but it was just something that was noticeable and carried on through the season and even into the grand final, and we'll talk about that in more detail. But I think Port had something like 60 more handballs and centrals in that grand final, and they were all really attacking handballs. Again, that quick give out of a pack to release a runner and put the centrals defence under pressure. And it was, again, once you got the runners out there, it was a typical Kale game plan, run up in numbers and get the ball long to really strong key forwards.
I actually think that probably came again a little bit organic, Ron, because of the pace that came into the team. The pace that came in the team, Robbie West was really quick leg speed. Darcy was quick on his legs and smart player. You had the Malakalis brothers who were lightning, especially Tony, who were just running past. A young fella called Michael Wilson went into the back line and just took off like a rabbit. Fabian was exceptionally quick as a player. Waterhouse was dynamite. So all these guys that have come in had leg speed, where myself, Darryl Borlace, Paul Northeast, Fiacchis, we give straight away. Stevie Williams, Harden, Nunda, we give straight away. And when there's more options for faster blokes, it's like, well, you just give them, they go, and they make you look good.
It was interesting. If you look at the grand final team, Tim, though, we didn't really have that tall a team, did we?
No, it wasn't it? No, and it's something that we've never been probably blessed with is massive height. And you can see the first ruck was Darren Mead. And, we used to just rev Meaty up about, jumping early and standing in his throat and knocking it our way. That's all we cared about. And he would do it. He would lift. We had in the past blokes like Brett Chalmers, Darren Mead, Daryl Poole, who just gave their all in that middle, even though they were definitely giving away 3 or 4 inches. And, Daryl Poole had a presence. Oh, Daryl. Always when he played, there was a presence.
There was.
I love Daryl.
I think 95 was Daryl's first premiership. He managed
Correct.
not to get himself suspended in a prelim final, and got to the big dance.
And deserved it. And he missed out on a couple because of the incidents. Probably 94, 96. He should have played without a doubt. So no, we liked having Daryl on the team, and these early days in the AFL team when we got in finally, which I was really happy that Daryl was taken in that squad. Brian Lees, who of course played those 95 and 96 years with us, he had a lot of friends at Richmond still. And after they played a trial game and one minor round game, and they rang Lees and they said, "This Daryl Poole bloke, what's his story?" They were, what's the word? Oh, shit, right. There it is.
We'd say intimidated if we were going to euphemize.
Oh, yeah, Daryl was very intimidating.
I mean, did the will we, won't we with the AFL entry in 96 affect the playing group at all? Did it play on the players' minds at all? Because it seemed like the AFL stuffed us around quite a bit.
Oh, look, that did. And the sentimental farewell for Fitzroy probably cost a couple of blokes spots in that first squad. And I still think Paul Northeast was stiff because he was considerably younger than that whole core that you think of in myself, Delaney, Fiacci. He was considerably younger than that. And I don't know. I reckon they sort of bundled him with us because he played in those flags with us, but he was 3-4 years younger. I thought he was stiff, and maybe not getting in 96 didn't help his cause. Yeah.
So that grand final side, I guess by the mid-90s, you're thinking back to the 3 in a row in 88, 90 and how a very young side there and how it went on. But the 95 side, when you looked at it, I think of the team that played, there were only 3 players in the end that either hadn't already played VFL AFL or didn't go on to play VFL AFL, and those 3 were Port legends to me, and that was yourself, Tim, of course, George Fiacci and Paul Northeast. They were great icons of the club and huge club men, and as you said, I mean, a different era. I think everyone in that team would have played. I think there was some real loyalty shown to Port by guys that could have shifted to the AFL and didn't. And I think yourself and George and Norther would have all acquitted yourselves very well at that highest level. But that was a really good side as well, and I think people probably underestimate it a little bit too. And as I said, in the trial games, we were flying. And I think if you go right back to the start of the season, as you'd know, Tim, that Scotty Hodges had that horrific broken ankle in round 1.
Yeah, round 1.
Against Glenelg, and Glenelg went on to win by 90 points. I think Hutz dislocated his elbow. I know Scott's ankle break was so bad that it looked like a motorbike accident. I think he snapped both bones and tore ligaments. And I heard a story when the trainer came, went to pull down his sock, bone was sticking out, so he pulled it back up and said, better get the stretcher. And that he came back and played that year. It's just incredible courage and typical of Scott Hodges, an incredibly courageous player and so mentally strong to play through injury. And, I mean, after that game, Port, I think, probably won 8 or 9 in a row by big margins and really got back to that form they were showing in trial games.
That was quite a night because, teams lift for milestone games and... that was my 250th, and we lost by 95 points.
In front of 12,000 people on a televised game on a Friday night at Footy Park. Thanks very much.
It was amazing. Everything that could have gone wrong did, and Ron, you're dead right. I ran past, heard the almighty crack. He just got his leg stuck behind him, Scotty, and the fullback pushed him. Yeah. And it broke the bone, and it did stick out the sock, and really, really thick quart of blood came out. And normally, we scream at one another to get up. And I called for the stretcher straight away. I said, "You just stay down there for a minute, mate. I don't think it's very good." So it was not a good night, to say the least. But you're right.
We did have such a great recovery, though. I mean, it's rare you've got the luxury of a two-time Ken Farmer medalist playing in a back pocket or in the reserves in Mark Tyler to fill in at full forward.
Correct. And I think he may well have been leading goal kicker once again in 95, Tiles.
He did, yeah.
And filled beautifully. And I reckon, just trying to remember if he broke his hand or got another injury.
He got an
just
injury
before
late in
finals.
the year. Yeah, because I think he kicked 11 goals and then got injured in that game.
Yeah, he kicked 9. Yeah.
9, was it? Yeah, and just couldn't
9
get
in
back
round
to
23 against South Adelaide.
couldn't get back to the grand final.
Yeah, it was tragic because, again, he had another bloody good year and really served us well there. So, a great lad too, Toles. Great lad. So, one of the.
Is there a more unlucky player than Mark Tyler to play 160-odd games, win 2 Ken Farmer medals and only play in 1 grand final?
From Port Adelaide's point of view, because you know that a lot of them have played in a lot of flags, guys that have played sort of high number of games that didn't get that premiership success, and fortunately, I'm glad that Tiles at least got 94.
Yep.
I'd have to say that I reckon Carl Fragamini would be up there.
Yep.
He did his elbow, missed the 77 grand final after playing for quite a long time. It was a bit of a cult hero. And I don't think he got back in the team when they started winning 79, 80 and 81, and I think he'd retired. So that was a bit of a tragedy.
Ivan Eckerman took over the back pocket.
Correct, he took over the back pocket.
Yeah, and the other one I think is Steve Curtis, who just a stalwart. It was just in that era, those 5 years, and where unfortunately it coincided with Russell's coaching, but also it was that transition period for Port where, well, Tim, as you know, you came into the side during that time, and guys like Wayne Marnie and Greg Anderson and Craig Bradley and then some of the other, David Brown, the young guys who stayed on, some went on to the VFL and the others that stayed on and rebuilt the side, and then Jack came back in 88 and just sort of polished up the product and carried them on back to premiership glory, and poor Steve Curtis just missed out in that window there.
Agreed, because I reckon he tried. He did pre-season, played a few games in '88, and then his back packed up on him, and he just couldn't get on the track. So he had to retire very early in '88.
Tim, remind me, was Settree another one that was in and out of the side?
Sets, it was probably a little unfortunate in that he was a little bit younger, and he. Probably myself, David Brown, and Stevie Williams, and these sort of guys were running through as rovers, and Sets was just, behind those sort of 3 or 4. And when he got his chance, he never ever let us down. And 1990 and 92 are great examples where he came into the team and just performed magnificently. So he didn't mind the big stage. Freaky goals, great goals, and really was a tenacious player.
Yeah.
Cheer the black and the white. Honour the Magpies day and by night. Live that loyal...
Well, look, we won our next 8 games by an average of 62 points. We got straight back on that horse. We had Tyler, Waterhouse and Olsen kicking bags of goals every week. We beat the Lycra Legs by 58 points. We beat our biggest rival Centrals by 68. And in the grand final rematch, we won by 49 points. And my lasting memory of that game is Andrew Taylor running 25 metres to clobber Troy Olsen.
It was really easy to get under Andrew Taylor's skin, even for supporters.
Not wrong.
He'd come to Albert and we'd get stuck into him, or not me, of course, because I was very quiet and shy and retiring, but other people around me might. And he would react to the crowd. And you knew once a player did that, you had him. I mean, I don't know what it was like for you on the field, Tim, but if you saw something like that, you must have thought, oh, this guy he's lost it.
Yes, which is a great sign, and he could play well, Tales, but I think when he's doing that, he's definitely losing the plot. But yeah, I mean, to run all the way and get poor old Ollie wouldn't hurt a fly. Ollie just wanted a hamburger and a beer. That was Ollie's highlight of it.
I remember seeing Troy Olsen in a curtain raiser in I think '97 before a power game, and he was the size of a house. And I thought, who is this guy playing for some country team? And I looked down, and it's Troy Olsen. I thought he's only 23. He must be about 140 kilos out there.
And I reckon he was going bald as well.
He was.
Yep.
He looked about 50.
It's like Monty Burns' head on him, on Homer's body.
Look, I remember that game myself, and we did have a good giggle. But Brian Fairclough, who was in that early formation of the first squad at Port Adelaide in the AFL, he actually said to me, "Do you know we tried to talk Troy Olsen into playing and going into the AFL first squad, but he refused."
Well, I think he got drafted by Collingwood in '93 or something like that, but I don't think he went over.
No, you don't.
He'd be a bit like Peter Carey. He would have gone over, had a look at the training, and I think I'll come back.
Yeah.
He was a character, absolute character. Gee, he had an incredibly explosive pace and a massive kick. Oh,
He kicked
I really
7
like
in
playing
one
with
game,
Ollie.
didn't
Yeah,
he kicked 7 in a
man,
game?
5, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Clive and him
I think it's South, I reckon they kicked
Yeah, phenomenal.
13 between them. I just wanted to ask you, Tim, that because Macca was just talking about the winning, 8, 10 in a row, and then we probably lost 4 out of 5 in the middle of the year, and it was always the mythology is probably not the right word, but the legend of Arnie's training block in the middle of the year. Was it true or was it not that there was this really hard training block in the middle of the year to prepare you for finals?
It was Jack's playbook. It was almost spot on in those times. Yeah. We always had a slump in the middle, and
that's it.
We just had to make sure that we got out of it. And Jack did like to put a bit into our legs, and then with about 3 or 4 weeks to go, training would lighten up phenomenally. And as the grounds firmed up, he allowed us to just whiz along and get back to training at speed and making it really short. And he had a very good template which he followed every year, and we knew it was coming, and it was awesome. And we just had to battle through those sort of middle games.
Well, it wasn't a premiership year without a mid-season slump. I mean, if we weren't losing to Nord at the Parade or Centrals at Elizabeth, then it wasn't a premiership year.
Spot on. You thought something was seriously wrong.
We even lost to South.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, Noarlunga.
Yeah, that was our first game there. I think that was their first season at Higginbotham Oval. And I remember going there, and it was freezing cold. And it was a really long trip. Like you leave on Friday night.
Yeah, it was. I reckon a ball bounced off of a cow pat and went sideways. It was just not a great experience first up.
Damien Sheehan kicked 4 goals that day.
I remember Big Dogger. Yeah, saw him actually Boxing Day. Actually caught up with him Boxing Day. We had a few beers down the Seaton, and that was fantastic to catch up with him. He was a good lad.
Well, we got over that slump, and we had some big wins towards the end of the season as well. We played Nord at Footy Park in one of the most brutal games I can remember. Poor old Roger Delaney copped one of the biggest bumps in the third quarter, and just had his I'm not sure how to put it.
Nose, eye socket all broke.
He had his face rearranged basically.
Yeah,
McCormack.
And McCormack got games for that, didn't he? I reckon he got
many. One, if that.
One. It was just huge. Roger sort of flew through the air, basically.
It would be a 9-weeker these days.
Oh,
because he went past the ball, jumped in the air, hip bone straight into Roger's face, and I was in the forward line, and I saw a collision, and I thought, what's happened there? And then there was a bit of commotion, all the rest of it, and I saw Roger down still. I thought, what's he doing? So I've sprinted from the forward line, started going down there to sort things out, and I'm screaming as I'm going up, get up, get up. He tried to get up. He looked at me, and the right side of his face was towards me, and his nose was pointing towards West Lakes. So I said, all right, stay down. Stay down. Oh, it was a mess, absolute mess. And I started quickly rearranging on the field and said, I reckon Curtly Ambrose was playing. And I said, hey, you get to fall back, get down there, just sorted it out while I was out there. And then we continued on. But I didn't actually know who did it or how it happened until later. And George Fiarchi was absolutely determined to get him back.
And he
did get him back in the final.
Got him in the final, yeah. I think the umpies turned a blind eye to that one, but I reckon George landed nearly as good a one as he landed on Damien Arnold in the grand final.
Yeah, true. It was a big game.
Actually, Meady copped it that year too when we were playing Centrals at Elizabeth. I saw that one where Scott Stevens might have just run past the ball a little bit as well and cleaned him up in that game. I think we went on to lose that one by about 70-odd points as well.
Yep.
And he got absolutely poleaxed in that match.
Yeah, so well again in the grand final, Stevens didn't finish it, did he?
No, he ran into Leesy's head, and that was the end of him.
And that's enough to put anyone out.
Well, we had such a big end to the year, and I guess the big moment was Scotty Hodges' return at Woodville Oval. He kicked 5 goals in a 70-point thrashing of the Eagles.
Yeah, look, like you said, it was an amazing effort to get back for one, because that was a really, really bad break, and to get back, and the ankle, we get in the showers or the bath, and you could see the ankle was still almost 1.5 times the size of his other one, and there was always going to be at least a pre-season to get that back to normal. And he did an amazing effort to get through. But it gives you confidence that and the opposition, just fear him, because of all his deeds and actions that he's been able to do in grand finals.
Yeah.
And we finished the line around in third, only 1 point off top spot. It was a very even year between Central's, Nord and Port. Central's had a lot of AFL talent in their team. Guys like Ingerson and Scott Lee and Stephen Schwert, and, ex-guys like Ray Windsor and Peter Green and all these sorts of guys. And
McKinnon.
I guess Alan Stewart, McKinnon as well. Alan Stewart had them playing some pretty tough football there.
Look, Alan Stewart, I got massive amounts of praise for, because he was my Till Cup coach, and he took me away as a younger player in the first year, and then took me as the second year as captain in the Till Cup. I had a lot of time for him, and he had a lot of time for me, which was pretty good for me. But we always kept in touch, and still do even today. And he offered to coach Centrals through the 80s a couple of times, and once for free. And they went with people like Cowboy Neil and Neil Curley, thinking they needed that higher profile coach. Of course, with the advent of the Adelaide Crows in '91, they said, well, we don't know what's going to happen. They took Alan to offer a very cost-effective coach, if you like. But his whole mantra was about getting them to play like Port Adelaide, and to do all the things that Port Adelaide do. And I talk openly with Tom Zorich, who openly admits they came down, they watched our routine for a week, watched our pre-seasons, and said, right, we're just going to have to take it letter for letter and do exactly what they do. And Alan had a hard job, and I know for a fact that they had some icons there like Greg Smith and Rudy Manamaker and guys like this, that he had to, over his time, let go. And it was really tough, and he copped a lot of flack for it and all the rest of it. But what he was trying to do was say, look, I have to have a certain standard. I have to have a certain level of commitment, respect, you name it. And if I can't get it from, I don't care if you're a big name or not, you're going. And he did an amazing job in turning, I think there should be a bronze statue down there of him, turning that club around. He introduced the leading teams thing, which is all the rage, 15 years later. But he did that himself and with Ray McLean very early. So he did a great job in turning that footy club around and getting real good, honest people to be a part of it. And I think he did a marvellous job.
And it's something they did again in their era of success through the 2000s, was openly copied Port Adelaide. I mean, they openly, they admitted Reading Dynasty was a requirement if you're going to be part of Centrals, and really copying what Port Adelaide did. So they did it, obviously got it right that time around, and we're not to have their biggest era.
Yeah, you have to build towards it, don't you? And the 90s were exactly that. They were building towards it, and it took them that decade, but they had a pretty good decade afterwards.
They were always a club that they liked their cult heroes. I think, as you mentioned, guys like Smith and Mandamaker, and I can remember Max George back in the day, and Phil Horn, and John Duckworth, of course, and Jonas, and they would hang a lot of their expectations on a single player. And I think what you're saying, what Alan did, was to really build that team ethos with them, and create a much broader base of talent and commitment and achievement, and become a much better club, not just a marquee player kind of club.
Spot on. And look, then he came to work for Port Adelaide as our recruiting guy from 96 through to 2004, and I reckon it was one of our biggest losses in the end of 2004 was losing Alan at the time. I just think he had an exceptional eye for talent, and he pushed particular players when nobody else did. And he was obviously a massive Stuart Dew fan, who obviously knows how to win a grand final. And he was a big Josh Carr fan, and he pushed Choco to play him. And eventually he got that role early as that tagger, and he never let us down. But that was Alan's persistence in saying, I recruited this guy because you needed more in and under, and you needed a guy that could take him on in the middle, and that's why I got him. And gee whiz, what an eye.
Inside to Anderson. He drops the clutch and then goes away, puts it in towards half forward. Despair all over the place. Ginniver, he'll love to finish this one off, the diminutive little captain, and he's done just that. He loves it, Timmy, and the crowd love him too, particularly the black and white ones.